The morning sun rose over the colony of New Eden, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was a beautiful world. Green forests stretched across the continents. Blue oceans sparkled under the light of twin suns. 12 million humans called this planet home, and they had built something wonderful here. Commander stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, the Defiant. He was a tall man with dark skin and tired eyes. He had served in the Terran Defense Force for 20 years, and most of those years had been quiet, boring, even. He spent his days running drills and checking sensors. Nothing ever happened in the system. "Commander, the morning shift is ready," said Lieutenant Sarah, his second in command. Nodded and sipped his coffee. He could see New Eden spinning slowly below them. He could make out the lights of New Geneva, the capital city. 3 million people lived there. His sister was one of them. She taught elementary school to children who had never seen Earth. "Begin standard patrol pattern," he ordered. "Let's make this quick. I promised my sister I would visit her today." The Defiant was a small ship. It had a crew of 45 and enough weapons to fight off pirates or small raiding parties. It was not a warship. It was a patrol vessel, meant to watch and report, not to fight real battles. Down on the planet, life continued as normal. In New Geneva, children walked to school. Farmers in the eastern provinces checked their crops. Scientists at the Polar Research Station studied the planet's unique ice formations. A young couple got married in a small church by the sea. An old man sat on his porch and watched birds that looked almost like the ones from Earth. None of them knew that death was coming. In the deep darkness between stars, something moved. 47 massive ships traveled through fold space, that strange dimension where the normal rules of physics did not apply. These ships were black as night and covered in strange symbols. They belonged to the Dominion. They were an ancient race. They had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 6,000 years. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that glowed with cold intelligence. They believed they were superior to all other species. They believed the galaxy belonged to them by right. High Sovereign sat on his throne aboard the lead ship. He was the ruler of the Dominion, the most powerful of his kind. He had ordered this attack himself. "How long until we arrive?" he asked. 10 of their minutes, High Sovereign, replied his admiral. Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Good. The humans must learn their place. They expand too quickly. They breed too fast. They must be taught that some territories are forbidden to them." "Should we demand their surrender first?" "No," said the High Sovereign. "Dead species do not need to surrender. We will destroy this colony completely. The other humans will see what happens to those who ignore our warnings. They will learn to fear us, or they will die." They had done this before, many times. They had burned dozens of worlds belonging to other species. Some of those species no longer existed. They called it pruning the garden. They believed they were making the galaxy better by removing the weak. Aboard the Defiant, a young sensor officer named James Wright frowned at his screen. Something strange was happening. The readings made no sense. "Commander," he said, his voice uncertain, "I'm detecting some kind of energy signature. I've never seen anything like it." Walked over to look at the screen. The readings were bizarre. It looked like space itself was tearing open. "What is that?" asked Lieutenant. Before anyone could answer, the sky above New Eden split apart. 47 dreadnoughts appeared out of nowhere. They were enormous, each one several kilometers long. Their hulls were covered with weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Felt his heart stop. He had studied at the academy. He knew what they were capable of. He knew his little patrol ship had no chance against even one of those monsters. "Send a distress signal," he ordered, his voice somehow steady. "Maximum priority. Tell Earth what is happening. Tell them everything." "Commander, they're charging weapons," shouted Wright. Grabbed the communication panel himself. "All orbital platforms, this is Commander of the Defiant. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Begin immediate evacuation of the civilian population. Get as many people off the planet as possible. He knew it was hopeless. Those ships could destroy the entire planet in minutes, but he had to try. He had to do something. The first shots came without warning. Beams of purple energy lanced down from the fleet. They struck the orbital defense platforms first. These were humanity's first line of defense, armed with missiles and rail guns. They lasted less than 30 seconds. The weapons cut through them like a hot knife through butter. Metal melted. Explosions bloomed in the silent darkness of space. 300 people died in the first minute. "Return fire," shouted, "everything we have." The Defiant launched its missiles and opened up with its rail guns. The weapons were tiny compared to the ships. They did almost nothing. A few missiles exploded against enemy shields. A few bullets scratched the paint on their hulls. That was all. On the planet below, people looked up and saw fire in the sky. They saw their defense platforms burning and falling. They saw the massive shapes of alien ships, dark against the blue sky. And then the bombardment began. They turned their weapons on New Geneva first. They fired beams of energy that turned buildings to ash in seconds. They dropped bombs that created craters a kilometer wide. The beautiful capital city, home to 3 million souls, disappeared under a storm of fire and death. Sister died in the first wave. She was standing in front of her classroom, teaching children about the history of Earth. She was telling them about the great forests of Africa and the tall buildings of Lagos. One moment she was there. The next moment, she and her students and the school and the entire neighborhood were gone, turned to vapor by weapons built to destroy worlds. "No," whispered, watching the destruction. "No, no, no." The evacuation ships tried to launch. Brave pilots flew their shuttles up through the atmosphere, desperate to save anyone they could. They shot them down, every single one. They didn't want survivors. They wanted a message. The Defiant fought on, even though it was hopeless, ordered his ship to attack the nearest dreadnought. They fired everything they had. Their missiles exploded uselessly. Their bullets bounced off shields. The dreadnought turned its attention to them. "Commander," said Lieutenant, tears streaming down her face, "it's been an honor." "Make sure the recording is transmitting," said. "Earth needs to see this. They need to see what was done here." "It's transmitting. They'll get everything." "Good." The beam hit the Defiant and tore it apart. Felt a moment of terrible heat and then nothing. He died alongside his crew, 45 souls lost in an instant. On New Eden, the killing continued. They were thorough. They destroyed every city, every town, every village. They burned the forests and boiled the oceans. They hunted down humans hiding in caves and bunkers. They killed the scientists at the polar station. They killed the farmers in their fields. They killed the old man on his porch and the young couple who had just gotten married. 12 million humans lived on New Eden when the sun rose that morning. By sunset, not one of them remained alive. The admiral approached his high sovereign. "The operation is complete. No survivors." Nodded with satisfaction. "Transform the surface to glass. Let it serve as a monument to human foolishness." The fleet fired again, this time with sustained bombardment that melted the planet's surface. When they were finished, New Eden was a dead world. Its surface was smooth and glassy, reflecting the light of the twin suns. Nothing would ever grow there again. "Send a message to the human government," ordered the High Sovereign. "Tell them what we have done. Tell them that the same fate awaits any colony they establish beyond the Orion Spur. They may expand no further." The fleet gathered itself and disappeared into fold space, leaving behind a burning monument to their cruelty. 14 hours later, the transmission from the Defiant reached Earth. Admiral Helena received the message first. She was 62 years old, with gray hair and eyes like steel. She had served in the Terran Navy her entire adult life. She had fought pirates and put down rebellions and kept the peace for 40 years. She thought she had seen everything. She was wrong. She watched Commander's final recording in silence. She watched the ships appear. She watched the orbital platforms burn. She watched New Geneva disappear under fire from above. She heard the screams and the prayers and the desperate final messages from people who knew they were about to die. When the recording ended, she sat alone in her office for a very long time. Then she made a call. "Summon the United Terran Assembly," she said. "Emergency session, full attendance, no exceptions." 3 hours later, the representatives of humanity gathered in the Great Chamber on Earth. Presidents and prime ministers, generals and admirals, scientists and diplomats. The most powerful people in human civilization sat in their seats and waited to hear why they had been called. Admiral walked to the center of the chamber. She looked old and tired and very, very angry. 14 hours ago," she said, "the Dominion attacked our colony on New Eden." She activated the recording and let it play. She let them see everything. The chamber fell silent. Some representatives wept, others cursed. A few prayed quietly. They watched 12 million of their people die. They watched their ships burn. They watched their world turn to glass. When the recording ended, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, the Chancellor of Earth stood. He was a young man named David, elected just 2 years ago on a platform of peace and cooperation with alien species. His hands were shaking. "Do we know why they did this?" he asked. "Yes," said, "they sent us a message afterward. They say we expanded too far. They say we must not establish colonies beyond the Orion Spur. They say they will do this again if we disobey." "Then perhaps we should negotiate," said one representative. "Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution." Turned to look at him. Her eyes were like frozen fire. "Negotiate? They didn't negotiate. They didn't warn us. They didn't demand anything. They simply killed 12 million people and burned a world to glass. There is nothing to negotiate." "Then what do you suggest?" asked the Chancellor. Admiral walked to the main console. She entered a code that only 7 people in all of humanity knew. The holographic display changed, showing something that most of the representatives had never seen before. Ships, hundreds of ships, thousands of ships, ships hidden in asteroid fields and behind moons, ships buried under the ice of frozen worlds, ships that had been waiting for 300 years. "For centuries," said, "humanity has shown the galaxy a peaceful face. We built trade ships and passenger liners. We made friends and formed alliances. We pretended to be explorers and diplomats." She paused, letting them look at the hidden fleet. "That was a mask. Underneath, we never forgot what we truly are. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us with ice and fire and plague. We are the descendants of people who survived wars that killed hundreds of millions. We have been fighting each other since before we could write. War is in our blood. It is in our bones. It is in our souls." She turned to face the assembly. "These ships are our true inheritance. Project Prometheus. Project Resurrection. 800 capital ships. 4,000 support vessels. Weapons that we have never shown to any alien species. Weapons that would give them nightmares if they knew." The Chancellor stared at the display. "We kept this secret for 300 years. Yes, we hoped we would never need it. We hoped the galaxy would be friendly. We were wrong." "What are you proposing, Admiral?" His voice was cold and hard as stone. "They believe we are weak. They believe we will bow down and obey them out of fear. They killed 12 million innocent people to send us a message." She took a deep breath. "I propose we send a message of our own. I propose we wake the Armada. All of it. I propose we show them what happens when you hurt humanity. I propose we teach them that some lessons are written in fire." The chamber erupted in argument. Some wanted peace. Some wanted revenge. Some were afraid. Some were angry. The debate raged for hours. In the end, they voted. The result was nearly unanimous. Humanity would go to war. Admiral stood at the window of her office, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, they were celebrating their victory. They were congratulating themselves on putting the humans in their place. They had no idea what was coming. She thought about the 12 million dead, the children who would never grow up, the families destroyed, the dreams ended. She thought about Commander and his brave crew fighting to the end against impossible odds. "We will remember you," she said softly to the stars, "and we will make them pay." Across human space, in hidden shipyards and secret bases, ancient machines began to wake. Engineers who had spent their entire careers maintaining ships they never expected to use received new orders. Soldiers who had trained for wars they hoped would never happen were mobilized. The sleeping giant was opening its eyes. 6 months. That's how long they needed to prepare. 6 months to wake the Armada. 6 months to train the crews. 6 months to plan the campaign. They had 6 months of peace left. They just didn't know it yet. On the glassy surface of what had been New Eden, the twin suns set on a dead world. But in the darkness of space, new stars were beginning to shine. The lights of human warships, waking from their long sleep. The fires of vengeance were being lit. And they would burn across the galaxy. Deep in the cloud, far beyond the last planets of the solar system, something was waking up. For 300 years it had slept in the frozen darkness. Now its lights were coming on. Its engines were warming. Its weapons were charging. The TNS Retribution was the largest warship humanity had ever built. It was 7 kilometers long. Its hull was black as space itself. It carried enough weapons to crack a planet in half. And for 3 centuries, it had waited in the cold darkness for a war that everyone hoped would never come. Captain stood on the bridge and watched her crew bring the great ship back to life. She was 50 years old, with short black hair and a scar across her left cheek. She had spent her entire career in the reserve fleet, training for this day while praying it would never arrive. "Main power is online," reported her chief engineer. "All reactors functioning at full capacity. Weapons systems coming online now. We'll need another 6 hours to complete the diagnostic checks." Nodded. 6 hours. After 300 years of sleep, they would be ready to fight in 6 hours. The engineers who had designed this ship had done their jobs well. All around the solar system, the same scene was repeating itself. Ships were waking up. Crews were taking their stations. The hidden might of humanity was revealing itself at last. In the asteroid belt, the battleship's Vengeance broke free from its rocky tomb. It was named after an ancient Earthship that had fought impossible odds. Its captain watched as 200 other ships of the 7th Strike Group emerged from the asteroids around her. Their hulls gleamed in the distant sunlight. Their weapons bristled like the spines of angry animals. "All ships reporting ready," said her communications officer. "The Admiral is requesting a status update." "Tell her we're ahead of schedule," replied. "The 7th Strike Group will be ready to move in 4 days." On Earth, Admiral Helena coordinated the massive mobilization. She had not slept more than 3 hours a night since the attack on New Eden. She survived on coffee and anger. Her staff had tried to convince her to rest, but she refused. How could she sleep when there was so much to do? "Give me the numbers," she ordered during the morning briefing. General, commander of the Terran Marine Corps, stood and activated the holographic display. "As of this morning, we have 412 capital ships active and ready for combat. Another 230 will be online within the next 2 weeks. The rest will follow over the next 3 months. And the Marines? 8 million already mobilized. We're training another 8 million. By the time we're ready to move, we'll have 16 million ground troops available." Studied the display. The fleet was coming together faster than she had hoped. The old ships had been maintained well. The secret training programs had worked. Humanity was ready to fight. "What do we know about the enemy?" she asked. Change the display to show a map of space. The Dominion controls 18 colony worlds and 42 military installations. There is here, in the center of their territory. They have approximately 300 capital ships, most of them older designs. Their technology is advanced, but not significantly better than ours. Then why haven't we fought them before? Asked one of the junior officers. Because we didn't want to, replied. We hoped we could share the galaxy peacefully. We thought that if we showed them we were not a threat, they would leave us alone. She shook her head. We were wrong. We were stupid. And 12 million people paid the price for our stupidity. The planning sessions continued for weeks, and her staff worked out every detail: where to strike first, how to protect their supply lines, which planets to target. They studied everything humanity knew about their ships, their tactics, their weaknesses. Meanwhile, across human space, the war effort was growing. Factories that had been idle for decades started producing weapons. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels switched to warships. Young men and women lined up at recruiting stations, eager to avenge New Eden. The mood among humanity was strange. There was grief, yes. Millions wore black armbands to honor the dead. Memorials were held in every city on every human world. But there was also something else. A quiet fury, a cold determination, a willingness to do whatever was necessary. Maria Santos was a farmer on Mars. She had never fired a weapon in her life. Her son had moved to New Eden 5 years ago to start a new life. Now he was dead, burned to atoms along with everyone else on that world. Maria was 60 years old, too old to fight. But she worked 18 hours a day in her fields, growing food for the soldiers. She pushed herself until her body ached, until her hands bled, until she collapsed from exhaustion. Then she got up and did it again. We'll grow the food, she told her neighbors. We'll keep the soldiers fed, and they'll make those alien bastards pay. David was a teenager on Earth. He had never met anyone from New Eden, but he had watched the recordings. He had seen what they had done. On his 18th birthday, he walked into a recruiting station and signed up for the Marines. I want to fight, he told the recruiter. I want to make them hurt. The recruiter, a veteran with gray hair and tired eyes, looked at him for a long moment. It won't be easy, she said. War is ugly, people die, friends die. Are you ready for that? No, David admitted. But I'm going anyway, because if we don't fight, they'll do it again. They'll burn another world, kill another 12 million. We have to stop them. Stories like this repeated across human space. Billions of people were touched by the tragedy of New Eden, and they responded in the only way they knew how. They fought, they worked, they sacrificed. In a hidden research station on a moon of Jupiter, scientists worked on weapons that had been theoretical for centuries. Dr. Obi led a team developing new types of ammunition for the fleet's rail guns. The projectiles were small, no bigger than a fist, but they contained compressed antimatter that would explode on impact with the force of a nuclear bomb. We've been working on this for 300 years, she told Admiral during an inspection. We always hoped we'd never need it, but the technology is ready. We can produce 10,000 rounds per day. Good, said. I want 100,000 by the time we launch. Though, of course, knew nothing of this. In their space, life continued as normal. High Sovereign celebrated his victory with feasts and ceremonies. He awarded medals to his admirals. He gave speeches about the natural order of the galaxy and the proper place of lesser species. His intelligence officers reported that the humans were upset. They were holding memorials and making angry speeches. Some of their representatives had called for war. They are weak, the chief intelligence officer reported. They grieve and cry and make noise, but they will do nothing. We have studied their military. They have a few hundred small ships, mostly for patrol and defense. They cannot threaten us. What about these rumors of hidden fleets? Asked. Some of my advisors are worried. The intelligence officer made a dismissive gesture. Lies and propaganda. The humans are trying to save face. They want to seem strong even though they are weak. We have scanned their space thoroughly. There are no hidden fleets. There are no secret weapons. They are exactly what they appear to be, a young, foolish species that expanded too fast and had to be taught a lesson. Nodded, this was what he had expected. The humans were like all the other species the Dominion had crushed over the. They would weep and wail, and then they would submit. They would learn their place. Continue monitoring them, he ordered. But I do not expect any problems. The humans have been properly humbled. He could not have been more wrong. 4 months after the attack on New Eden, Admiral called a final planning meeting. The War Council gathered in a secure bunker deep beneath the surface of Earth. The room was filled with holographic displays showing the positions of every ship in the Terran Armada. Status report, she ordered. General stood. We have 650 capital ships ready for combat. Another 150 will be online within the month. All Marine divisions are trained and equipped. We have enough supplies for a sustained campaign lasting at least 2 years. Intelligence. The intelligence chief, a thin woman named Colonel Sarah West, activated her display. We have mapped every military installation. We know the patrol routes of their fleets. We have identified weaknesses in their sensor networks that will allow us to approach undetected. Their home fleet. Approximately 100 ships stationed around there. Another 200 spread across their territory. They have no idea we're coming. Studied the displays for a long moment. Then she turned to face the council. Humanity has not fought a war like this in 300 years, she said. We have worked hard to be peaceful. We have tried to be friends with other species. We have shown the galaxy our best face, explorers, traders, diplomats. She paused, her eyes hard. But we are also warriors. Our ancestors fought wars that killed hundreds of millions. They survived ice ages and plagues and catastrophes that would have destroyed any other species. They clawed their way up from the mud and reached for the stars. That strength is still in us. It has always been in us. She walked to the central display and highlighted the. In 2 months, we will begin Operation Burning Star. We will strike with everything we have. We will destroy their military. We will burn their bases. We will make them pay for every single person they killed on New Eden. Her voice dropped to a cold whisper. And when we are done, no species in this galaxy will ever mistake human kindness for human weakness again. The council rose to their feet. There was no applause, no cheering, just grim determination. They knew what was coming. They knew the cost, but they also knew it had to be done. Far away, in the cold darkness between stars, the Terran Armada was gathering. Ships that had slept for centuries were forming into battle groups. Soldiers were loading into transport vessels. Pilots were running final checks on their fighters. Captain stood on the bridge of this vengeance and watched her fleet assemble. 200 ships in perfect formation, their weapons charged, their crews ready. She thought about the people of New Eden. She thought about the children who had been burned alive. She thought about the message that had sent, submit or die. We have a different message, she said softly, and we're going to deliver it personally. In her quarters on the Retribution, Admiral looked at a photograph. It showed a young woman with a bright smile, her daughter, who had moved to New Eden 10 years ago. Her daughter, who was now dead along with 12 million others. I'm coming, Maria, she whispered. I can't bring you back, but I can make sure it never happens again. I can make them remember. She put the photograph away and walked to the bridge. The fleet was ready. The soldiers were ready. Humanity was ready. In 2 months, they would learn a lesson they would never forget. The sleeping giant had awakened. And it was angry. 1 month before launch, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. The Council was an organization of alien species that tried to keep peace in the galaxy. They had heard about the destruction of New Eden, and they had finally decided to respond. The message was simple. The council urged both sides to negotiate peacefully and avoid further bloodshed. Read the message with disgust. Where were they when New Eden burned? She asked. Where was their call for peace when 12 million humans were being slaughtered? She composed a response. To the Galactic Council, we appreciate your concern. However, the time for negotiation was before the killed 12 million innocent people. They chose war. We are simply responding in kind. We suggest you stay out of our way. The Council sent more messages. They warned of the dangers of war. They spoke of cycles of violence and the importance of restraint. They reminded humanity that they were powerful and dangerous. Ignored them all. 2 weeks before launch, she addressed the entire fleet via holographic broadcast. 800 capital ships, 4,000 support vessels, 16 million soldiers. They all watched as their admiral stood before them and spoke. In 2 weeks, we begin the greatest military campaign in human history. Some of you will not come home. I will not lie to you about that. War is cruel and it takes the best of us. She paused, letting her words sink in. But I promise you this, every sacrifice will be honored. Every death will have meaning. We fight not for conquest or glory, but for justice. We fight so that what happened on New Eden will never happen again. We fight for the 12 million who can no longer fight for themselves. Her voice rose. They believe we are weak. They believe we will bow down and accept their cruelty. They believe they can murder our people and face no consequences. She smiled grimly. We are about to prove them wrong. We are about to show them what humanity really is. We are about to teach them a lesson that will echo across the galaxy for 1,000 years. She raised her fist. For New Eden. 800 ships answered as one. The sound echoed through space, a battle cry that promised vengeance. For New Eden. The countdown had begun. 6 months to the day after the destruction of New Eden, the Terran Armada crossed into space. They came in silence, their ships running dark, their engines at minimum power. Colonel Sarah West and her intelligence team had found gaps in the sensor network, and the fleet slipped through like ghosts in the night. Admiral Helena stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the stars slide past. Around her, officers worked at their stations, calm and focused. They had trained for this moment for months. For some of them, they had trained for their entire lives. Time to target, she asked. 3 hours, Admiral, replied her navigation officer. The fleet is in position. Nodded, their first target was Prime, a border world. It had a large military base and a small fleet of 30 ships. It was the first step in their long journey toward the. 3 hours later, the Terran Armada emerged from the darkness. 312 warships materialized in perfect formation around Prime. The planet's defense stations detected them immediately, but by then it was far too late. Governor of Prime was in his office when the alarm sounded. He ran to his command center and stared at the sensor displays in disbelief. So many ships, more than he had ever seen in one place. And they were not ships. Get me the High Sovereign, he shouted, and open a channel to those vessels. The communication officer worked frantically at his console. Channel open, Governor. Tried to keep his voice steady. Unknown fleet, you are in Dominion space. You will identify yourselves immediately and explain your presence. Any hostile action will be met with. Governor. The voice that interrupted him was cold and hard. On his screen, a human female appeared. She had gray hair and eyes that showed no mercy. I am Admiral Helena of the Terran Armada. 6 months ago, your people attacked our colony of New Eden. You killed 12 million humans, men, women, and children. You burned the world to glass. You offered no warning. You showed no mercy. Felt his heart begin to race. That was the High Sovereign's decision. I had nothing to do with. It was a decision made by the Dominion, interrupted. Your Dominion, your government, your people. And now you will all pay the price." "You cannot do this," shouted. "The consequences will be—" "Consequences?" smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Governor, we are the consequences. We are what happens when you murder innocent people and expect no response. We are what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." The channel went dead. Turned to his military commander. "All ships, all defense stations, open fire, destroy them." The 30 ships around Prime launched themselves at the Terran fleet. The defense platforms charged their weapons and began firing. For a moment, space was filled with the light of energy beams and missiles. It was not even close to a fair fight. The Terran ships moved with perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly where it needed to be. Their weapons were unlike anything they had ever seen. Rail guns fired projectiles that exploded with the force of small nuclear bombs. Missiles tracked their targets with impossible accuracy. Energy weapons cut through shields like paper. The first ship was destroyed in the opening seconds. It simply exploded, breaking apart into a cloud of burning debris. The second followed moments later, and the third, and the fourth. Governor watched in horror as his entire fleet was annihilated in less than 11 minutes. 30 ships, crewed by thousands of warriors, were reduced to scrap metal. The defense platforms lasted even less time. The Terran ships picked them off one by one, their weapons never missing. When it was over, Prime had no defenses left. The bombardment began. Terran ships positioned themselves over military installations and began firing. Barracks were destroyed. Weapons factories were flattened. Shipyards were reduced to rubble. The Terrans were precise, targeting only military locations. Civilian areas were left untouched. Governor watched his world's military capability disappear. Years of work, thousands of soldiers, weapons that had taken decades to build, all gone in hours. When the bombardment ended, a new message played on every frequency in the system. It was Admiral again. "To the people of Prime, your military has been destroyed. Your ships are gone. Your weapons are gone, but we have not harmed your civilians. We have not burned your cities. We have not killed your children." Her voice grew colder. "This is the difference between us and you. You slaughter innocents. We punish the guilty. You destroy without mercy. We destroy with purpose. Remember this day. Remember what humanity is capable of when provoked." The final message was simple, broadcast across the entire system and beyond. For New Eden, 17 worlds remain. Then the Terran fleet vanished, jumping away to their next target. News of the attack on Prime reached the within hours. High Sovereign was in his palace when the report arrived. He read it 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. 300 human ships, his entire border fleet destroyed, military installations across Prime reduced to rubble, and the humans had barely suffered any damage. A few ships with minor problems, nothing more. "This is impossible," he whispered. "The humans do not have ships like this. They cannot have weapons like this." "The reports are confirmed, High Sovereign," said his intelligence chief, who was now shaking with fear. "Multiple sources. The humans attacked with overwhelming force. Our ships were destroyed in minutes." "You told me they were weak," screamed. "You told me they had no hidden fleets. You told me they could not threaten us." The intelligence chief had no answer. He had been wrong, terribly, catastrophically wrong. "Summon all fleet commanders," ordered. "Recall every ship to our central systems. Prepare for war. The humans want a fight and we will give them one." But even as he gave the orders, a cold fear was growing in his hearts. He had studied many species over his long life. He had crushed dozens of them. They had always followed the same pattern: grief, anger, and then surrender. They had never struck back. They had never had the power to strike back. The humans were different. Across the galaxy, other species watched the unfolding war with a mixture of fear and fascination. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions. Ambassadors sent frantic messages to their governments. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Where had the humans been hiding this power? And what did it mean for the rest of the galaxy? The ambassador met with his government's military leaders. They were an old species, almost as old as they had survived by being careful and cautious. This changes everything, said. For centuries we believed we understood the humans, traders, explorers, diplomats, peaceful and cooperative, but this. He activated a hologram showing the attack on Prime. 300 ships appeared out of nowhere. They destroyed the fleet in 11 minutes, and the humans lost nothing, not a single ship. The military commander studied the hologram. They were hiding this for centuries. They let everyone believe they were weak, and all that time they were building an armada that could challenge any power in the galaxy. Not just challenge, said quietly. Defeat. Look at these weapon signatures. Look at their coordination. Look at how they fight. These are not amateurs. These are warriors who have been preparing for a real war for generations. Why would they do this? Asked another leader. Why hide such power? Thought for a long moment before answering. Because they hoped they would never need it. The humans genuinely wanted peace. They genuinely hoped the galaxy would be friendly, but they never forgot what they are. They never forgot where they came from. He pulled up images of human history, wars, battles, conflicts stretching back thousands of years. We thought humans were prey learning to be predators, he said. We were wrong. They were always predators. They were just pretending to be prey. The leaders exchanged uneasy glances. If the humans defeated and it was beginning to look possible, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift dramatically. An entirely new force would emerge, one that had been hiding its true strength for 300 years. What do we do? Asked the military commander. We watch, said, and we pray we never give the humans a reason to turn their weapons on us. The Terran Armada struck again 3 days later. This time, they attacked Station, a supply depot that served their entire Eastern fleet. 150 ships descended on the station without warning. They were more prepared this time. They had gathered 50 warships to defend the station. They thought it would be enough. It wasn't. Captain led the assault from the bridge of this vengeance. Her ship was one of the older designs in the fleet, built 200 years ago and carefully maintained ever since. But age had not diminished its power. All ships form attack pattern Delta, she ordered. Fighters clear a path, cruisers target their command ship, destroyers clean up the rest. The battle was swift and brutal. Terran fighters swarmed the fleet, drawing their fire while larger ships moved into position. Then the main guns opened up. This vengeance carried a weapon that had been classified for 2 centuries. A lance of concentrated antimatter that could punch through any known shield. Had never fired it in combat before. Today, she would use it for the first time. Main gun charged, reported her weapons officer. Fire. A beam of pure destruction shot from this vengeance. It struck the flagship dead center. The shields held for less than a second before collapsing. The beam continued through the ship, exiting the other side and hitting a second vessel behind it. Both ships exploded moments later. The fleet broke. Ships tried to flee in every direction. The Terrans hunted them down. By the time it was over, 47 ships had been destroyed. The remaining 3 had escaped into fold space, heavily damaged. The Terrans had lost 2 fighters. The pilots had ejected safely and were recovered. Station was reduced to debris. Its supplies, food, fuel, ammunition for an entire fleet were scattered across space. Looked at the destruction and felt nothing, no joy, no satisfaction, just cold determination. Send the standard message, she ordered. For New Eden, 16 worlds remain. They received the news with growing despair. 2 attacks, dozens of ships lost, 2 critical installations destroyed, and the humans seemed unstoppable. His advisors were terrified. Some argued for immediate surrender. Others wanted to concentrate all forces around them. A few still insisted they could win if they just gathered enough ships. "They are only humans," one general said. "We have defeated hundreds of species. We can defeat them too." "Can we?" asked. "They destroyed 30 ships in 11 minutes. They destroyed 50 more in less than an hour. Their weapons cut through our shields like they weren't there. Their tactics are flawless, and they have 800 capital ships, maybe more." He looked at his general with ancient, tired eyes. "I have ruled the Dominion for 200 years. I have crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. I thought I understood power. I thought I understood war." He shook his head slowly. "I was wrong. The humans are something else entirely, something we have never faced before, something we may not be able to defeat." The general had no response. For the first time in his life, he was beginning to feel something he had never felt before. Fear. The Pyre campaign, as the humans would later call it, had begun, and it was only getting started. In her quarters aboard the Retribution, Admiral reviewed the reports from the first 2 attacks. Everything had gone according to plan. Better than planned, actually. Though we're weaker than expected, their defenses more outdated, their tactics more predictable. "We're winning," said General, who was meeting with her via hologram. "At this rate, we could reach there in 8 months instead of 12. "Perhaps," replied, "but we won't rush. We will be thorough, every military installation destroyed, every fleet base eliminated. When we reach there, I want them to have nothing left. No ships, no weapons, no hope." "And the civilian populations?" "We don't touch them. We are not butchers. We strike military targets only. We show them there is a difference between them and us." Nodded. "The troops understand. Everyone knows the rules. Military targets only." Good. Pulled up a map of space. "Our next target is Station, their primary fleet base. Intelligence says they're concentrating ships there, 200 vessels, maybe more." "That's their largest fleet outside the—" "Exactly. We destroy it and we break their back. After, they won't be able to mount any significant resistance." She studied the map with cold calculation. "In 3 weeks we hit, and we hit it hard." The war was far from over, but humanity was winning. And across the galaxy, species that had once looked down on the young, upstart humans were beginning to realize a terrible truth. The Predator was no longer pretending. The Pyre campaign burned across space like a wildfire that could not be stopped. In the 3 months since the first attack on Prime, the Terran Armada had struck 12 military installations, destroyed 140 enemy ships, and reduced billions of credits worth of military equipment to scrap metal. The humans moved like ghosts, appearing without warning, destroying their targets, and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. Private David sat in the belly of a troop transport, waiting for the drop. He was 20 years old now, one of 16 million Marines preparing for the next phase of the war. His unit, the 47th Shock Infantry, had been assigned to the ground assault on manufacturing facilities on the moon of Hellas 4. "First combat drop," said the sergeant sitting next to him. Sergeant Maria was a veteran of 20 years, though she had never seen real combat until this war. "Nervous?" "Yes," David admitted. There was no point in lying. Everyone was nervous. "Good. Nervous keeps you alive. Confident gets you killed." Checked her rifle for the 10th time. "Remember your training, follow orders, watch your corners, and don't be a hero. Heroes die first." The transport shook as it entered the moon's thin atmosphere. Through the small window, David could see flashes of light, the Terran fleet engaging orbital defenses. The battle would be over soon. It always was. 2 minutes to drop," announced the pilot. David gripped his rifle and tried to slow his breathing. He thought about why he was here. The recordings from New Eden, the children who had been burned alive, the families who had been erased from existence. He had joined to stop that from ever happening again. Now he was about to put his training to the test. 30 seconds. The ramp at the back of the transport began to open. Thin air rushed in, cold and harsh. David could see the surface of the moon below, gray rock and industrial complexes stretching to the horizon. Go, go, go. David jumped. The drop suit carried him down through the thin atmosphere. Around him, thousands of other Marines were falling like dark rain. Below, the facility was already burning from orbital strikes, but the defenses were still active. Energy beams reached up from the surface, trying to pick off the falling soldiers. David saw the Marine next to him take a direct hit. The young woman simply vanished, her suit and body vaporized in an instant. He didn't have time to think about it. He activated his suit's thrusters and adjusted his fall, dodging through a web of enemy fire. He hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. His rifle was up before he finished rolling, sweeping for targets. A soldier appeared around a corner, four-eyed and gray-skinned, raising its weapon. David fired first. The alien went down. "Move, move," Sergeant was shouting. "Push toward the main building, clear every room." David ran, his unit around him. They cleared buildings one at a time, room by room, corner by corner. The defenders fought hard. They were soldiers too, doing their duty. But they were outmatched. The Terran Marines had better armor, better weapons, and better training. 3 hours later, the facility was secured. David sat on a pile of rubble, his hands shaking. He had killed 17 soldiers. He had watched 6 of his fellow Marines die. He felt empty, hollowed out, like something important had been removed from inside him. Sergeant sat down next to him and handed him a water container. "First time is always the worst," she said quietly. "It doesn't get easier exactly. You just learn to carry it better." "Is it worth it?" David asked. "All this death?" Looked out at the burning facility. "Ask the people of New Eden." "Oh wait, you can't. They're all dead. 12 million of them, including my brother and his wife and their 3 kids. David said nothing. "Yeah," continued, "it's worth it. Every drop of blood we spill, every life we take, it's worth it, because if we don't do this, they'll do it again. They'll burn another colony, kill another 12 million, and another after that. The only way to stop them is to show them that there are consequences, real consequences, painful consequences." She stood up and offered David her hand. "Come on, Private, we've got work to do." Far above them, aboard the Retribution, Admiral received reports from across the campaign. Hellas 4 was secured. 2 more supply depots had been destroyed. Another fleet had been ambushed and eliminated. The campaign was proceeding exactly as planned. In 2 weeks, they would strike the biggest target yet, Station. Was the pride of the military. It was their largest fleet base, their primary shipyard, their most powerful defensive position outside the High Sovereign had ordered 200 ships to gather there, the largest concentration of naval power ever assembled. He believed it would be enough to stop the humans. Captain studied the intelligence reports on with intense focus. Her ship, this Vengeance, would be leading the assault. She had been given this honor because of her performance in previous battles. Now she had to live up to it. 200 ships, said her first officer. That's the largest force we've faced. True, replied, but look at their positions. They're clustered too tightly around the station. They think their numbers will protect them. They don't understand that numbers mean nothing if you can't maneuver. What's our approach? Pointed at the holographic display. We come in from 3 directions simultaneously. Admiral leads the main fleet from here. The 5th Strike Group attacks from the flank. We lead the 7th Strike Group straight at their command vessels. A hammer and anvil. More like 3 hammers, said with a thin smile. No anvil, just hammers. The battle plan was distributed across the fleet. Every ship knew its role. every crew trained for their specific tasks. The Terran Armada moved into position over 3 days, approaching through multiple fold space jumps to avoid detection. On the morning of the attack, Admiral addressed her fleet one final time. Today we face their largest force. Today they believe they can stop us. Today we prove them wrong. Her voice was iron. Remember New Eden. Remember the 12 million. Fight hard, fight smart, and show no mercy to their warships. For those who fall today, know that your sacrifice will be honored for generations. Your names will be remembered. Your deaths will have meaning. She paused. All ships prepare for combat. On my mark, we jump. 300 Terran warships engaged their fold space drives and vanished from normal space. They reappeared around station in perfect formation. The defenders had only seconds to react. All ships weapons free, commanded. The battle began. They fought hard. They had to. This was their most important base, their last real hope of stopping the human advance. 200 ships launched themselves at the Terran fleet, weapons blazing, shields at maximum. It wasn't enough. Captain led the 7th Strike Group directly at the command vessels. Her ship's main gun, the antimatter lance, fired again and again, each shot destroying or crippling an enemy ship. Around her, 80 other Terran vessels poured fire into the formation. The enemy fleet tried to adapt. They spread out, attempted flanking maneuvers, concentrated fire on individual Terran ships, but the humans had anticipated every tactic. Every time they tried something, the Terrans countered it. Their flagship is breaking, reported Sensors officer. She's trying to retreat. No, said coldly. No one retreats. Target the flagship. All batteries fire. This Vengeance and 12 other ships focused their fire on the command vessel. The massive ship shuddered under the assault. Its shields collapsed. Its hull began to break apart. Finally, it exploded, scattering debris across thousands of kilometers. With their flagship gone, the fleet lost all coordination. Ships tried to flee in every direction. Some collided with each other. Others were picked off by Terran hunters. A few managed to escape into fold space, but most were destroyed. The battle lasted 4 hours. 187 ships were destroyed. Station was reduced to ruins. The shipyards that had built warships for centuries were nothing but twisted metal. The Terrans lost 11 ships, 11 against 187. Admiral looked at the remains of the battle and felt a grim satisfaction. The back of the military was broken. They had nothing left that could challenge the Terran Armada. The road to there was open. Send the message, she ordered. For New Eden, 6 worlds remain. On the High Sovereign received the news of fall in silence. His advisors waited, terrified, for his response. 200 ships, he finally said. Our best ships, our finest warriors, gone in 4 hours. High Sovereign, began his military commander. We can still what? Interrupted. Gather more ships for them to destroy, build more stations for them to burn. We are beaten. Do you not see that? He looked at his advisors with ancient, exhausted eyes. For 6,000 years, the Dominion has ruled this region of space. We have crushed every enemy that rose against us. We have burned worlds and exterminated species. We believed we were invincible. He laughed bitterly. And now we are being taught the same lesson we taught so many others, the lesson of fire and death, the lesson of consequences. What do we do, High Sovereign? Was silent for a long moment, then he spoke. Recall all remaining ships to the, prepare our defenses for the final battle, and prepare to contact the humans. His advisors stared at him in shock. You cannot mean to surrender, one of them exclaimed. I mean to survive, replied. The Dominion has existed for 6,000 years. If there is any chance of it existing for 6,000 more, we must take it. Pride means nothing if we are all dead. Across the galaxy, The news of spread quickly. Other species watched with a mixture of awe and terror. The who had terrorized this region of space for were being systematically destroyed by a species that most had dismissed as insignificant. The Galactic Council called emergency sessions. Ambassadors sent frantic messages. Military analysts studied every piece of information they could find about the Terran Armada. Everyone was asking the same question. What else were the humans hiding? The ambassador addressed his government's senior leaders. Station is destroyed. 200 ships are gone. The humans are advancing toward them with no significant resistance remaining. How is this possible? Asked the prime leader. They were the most powerful military force in this sector. They have dominated for 6,000 years. Were corrected. They were the most powerful force, past tense. The humans have changed everything. He pulled up detailed analysis of the battle of. Look at their tactics, perfect coordination, overwhelming firepower, precise targeting. They lost 11 ships while destroying 187. That is not luck. That is not surprise. That is the result of centuries of preparation and training. But they always seemed so peaceful, said another leader. Trade ships, science vessels, diplomatic missions. Where did this come from? Shook his head slowly. It was always there, we just did not see it. The humans have a saying from their history, walk softly and carry a big stick. They walked softly. They made friends. They traded and explored. And all the time they were carrying the biggest stick the galaxy has ever seen. What do? We do nothing, replied. We stay quiet. We stay peaceful. We make absolutely sure we never give the humans a reason to turn their attention toward us. He looked at the image of burning ships. Because if we do, we will end up just like and we cannot afford that. The Pyre campaign continued for 3 more months. One by one, the remaining military installations fell. Fleet bases, supply depots, training facilities, weapons factories, all reduced to rubble by the relentless Terran advance. Private David fought in a dozen more ground actions. He lost friends. He killed enemies. He learned to carry the weight of war on his shoulders without breaking. He became the soldier his instructors had trained him to be. Captain led her strike group through battle after battle. Each victory brought them closer to Each destroyed enemy ship was a payment on the debt owed for New Eden. Admiral coordinated everything from the bridge of the Retribution. She slept only a few hours each night. She reviewed every battle report, every casualty list, every piece of intelligence. She was determined that not a single life would be wasted. Every death would move them closer to their goal. 11 months after the destruction of New Eden, the Terran Armada surrounded the 800 capital ships, 16 million Marines on troop carriers, the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy, poised to strike the final blow. On his throne, High Sovereign looked at the holographic display showing the human fleet surrounding his world. So many ships, so much power, and not a single thing he could do to stop them. He activated his communication system and prepared to send a message he had never imagined sending. A message of surrender. The final chapter of the war was about to begin. The hung in space like a blue-green jewel. It was a beautiful planet covered in vast oceans and lush forests. Billions of lived there, going about their daily lives, trying to ignore the ring of warships that surrounded them. Admiral Helena stood on the bridge of the Retribution and studied the planet below. After 11 months of war, 12 battles and countless deaths, they had finally arrived. The journey from New Eden had ended here. All ships in position, Admiral, reported her communications officer. The fleet is awaiting your orders. Nodded. 800 capital ships surrounded the 16 million Marines waited in their transports, ready to land. The most powerful military force in the galaxy was prepared to deliver the final blow. We're receiving a transmission from the surface, said the communications officer. It's the High Sovereign himself. Put it through. The holographic display flickered, and the image of High Sovereign appeared. He looked old and tired, his 4 eyes dim with exhaustion and fear. The proud ruler who had ordered the destruction of New Eden now looked like a broken creature. "Admiral," he said, his voice trembling slightly, I wish to discuss terms of surrender." The bridge fell silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing and turned to watch. "Go on," said her voice cold. "The Dominion will accept defeat. We will pay whatever reparations you demand. We will submit to whatever terms you require. We will disarm our military, surrender our ships, open our worlds to your inspection." Paused, his eyes pleading. "All we ask is that you spare our world, spare our people. Do not do to us what we did to New Eden." Said nothing for a long moment. She looked at the planet below, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The 12 million dead, her daughter among them, the burning worlds and shattered ships of the Pyre campaign, the soldiers who had given their lives to bring humanity to this point. "You killed 12 million people," she finally said. "Men, women, children. You burned them alive and laughed about it. You called it pruning the garden. You thought there would be no consequences." Lowered his head. I know what we did. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am asking for mercy, for my people. They did not order the attack. They did not push the buttons that fired the weapons. They are innocent." The people of New Eden were innocent too. "Yes," whispered, "they were." Turned to General, who was watching through a holographic link from his command ship. "General, what is the status of our marine forces?" 16 million troops ready to land, Admiral. We can begin ground operations within the hour." "And the orbital bombardment systems?" "Charged and targeted. We can glass the planet in less than a day if you give the order." His eyes widened with fear. Around the bridge, officers exchanged uncertain glances. This was the moment. This was the decision that would define humanity for generations to come. Looked at the billions of lives, billions of sentient beings who had families and dreams and hopes for the future. She could order their deaths with a single word. She had the power to do to them exactly what they had done to New Eden. She thought about her daughter. Maria had been a kind person, always looking for the good in others. She had moved to New Eden because she wanted to help build something new, something hopeful. She had died along with 12 million others because an alien ruler thought humans were beneath consideration. What would Maria want her to do? "High Sovereign," said slowly, "I have the power to destroy your world. I have the power to kill billions of your people. I have the power to erase them from the galaxy, just as you tried to erase us from New Eden." Waited, barely breathing. "But I will not." The High Sovereign's eyes flickered with disbelief. You will not." "No," his voice was hard but controlled. "We are not you. We do not slaughter civilians to make a point. We do not murder innocents to teach lessons. We came here for justice, not genocide." She stepped closer to the holographic display. "But make no mistake, High Sovereign, justice will be served. Every military installation on your world will be destroyed. Every warship, every weapons factory, every training facility. Your ability to wage war will be eliminated. Your military power will be broken forever. And our cities, our people, will not be harmed. We will target only military positions. Your civilians will live. Your children will grow up. Your species will survive." His eyes narrowed. "But you will remember. You will remember what happened when you challenged humanity. You will remember the price you paid for your arrogance. And you will teach your children and your children's children that there are some species you do not threaten, some lines you do not cross, some fires you do not start." Bowed his head. "Thank you, Admiral. Thank you for showing mercy that we did not show you." "This is not mercy," replied. "This is justice. There is a difference." She turned to her tactical officer. Begin the bombardment. Military targets only. I want confirmation on every strike before it's authorized." "Yes, Admiral." The Terran fleet opened fire. Beams of energy lanced down from orbit, striking military bases and weapons factories with surgical precision. Ground forces would not be needed. The fleet's weapons were accurate enough to destroy a single building while leaving neighboring structures untouched. The bombardment lasted 12 hours. When it was finished, the military was gone. Their fleet bases were craters. Their weapons factories were rubble. Their defense systems were offline permanently. A civilization that had terrorized the galaxy for 6,000 years had been defanged in a single day. When the bombardment ended, General's Marines landed. But they did not come to fight. They came to deliver a message. 50,000 troops descended on the ruins of the Dominion's Grand Military Academy, the place where officers had trained for. They cleared the rubble and prepared the ground. Engineers worked through the night, building something. The next morning, a monument stood in the center of the ruins. It was a black obelisk, 10 meters tall, made of the same glassy material that now covered the surface of New Eden. On its surface were carved 12 million names, every human who had died in the attack. Private David was part of the honor guard that stood watch over the monument. He looked at the names and thought about why he had joined the Marines. He had wanted revenge. He had wanted to make the pay, and they had paid. Their military was destroyed. Their empire was broken. They would never threaten humanity again. But standing here looking at those names, he realized something. Revenge wasn't enough. The dead couldn't be brought back. The pain couldn't be erased. All they could do was make sure it never happened again. "What are you thinking about?" asked Sergeant, standing beside him. "The names," David said. 12 million of them. I didn't know any of these people, but they're the reason we're here." "Yeah," nodded slowly. "We carry them with us. Every battle, every fight, we carry them. That's our job now, to remember, and to make sure the galaxy remembers too." High Sovereign came to see the monument personally. He was escorted by Terran Marines, but he was not a prisoner. He was a witness. He stood before the obelisk and looked at the names. Millions of names, carved in stone that would last forever. Proof of what his people had done. Proof of the price that had been paid. "I ordered this," he said quietly. "I gave the command. I thought it would make us safer. I thought it would teach the humans to fear us." Admiral stood beside him, her face unreadable. "And instead we taught them to hate us. And we learned that fear is a poor foundation for power." Turned to face her. "I have ruled for 200 years. I have won many victories. I thought I understood strength, but you have taught me something I never knew." "What is that?" "That true strength is not the ability to destroy. It is the ability to choose when not to destroy. You could have killed us all. You chose to spare us. That took more strength than anything we ever did." Looked at him for a long moment. "Remember that lesson, High Sovereign. Teach it to your people, because if you ever forget, if you ever attack humanity again, we will come back, and we will not be merciful a second time." "I understand." Bowed his head and walked away, escorted by his guards. He had come as a conqueror. He was leaving as a defeated ruler, his power broken, his empire humbled. But he was leaving alive, and so was his species. That was more than he had given New Eden. 1 week later, Admiral addressed the galaxy. Her message was broadcast on every frequency, transmitted to every world, displayed in every government building from one end of known space to the other. Billions of beings watched as the human admiral stood before the stars and spoke. 11 months ago, the Dominion attacked our colony of New Eden. They killed 12 million innocent people. They burned a world to glass. They expected us to bow down and accept their cruelty. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of iron. Instead, we responded. We destroyed their military. We burned their bases. We broke their power. And now we stand over there victorious. She paused. But we did not destroy their cities. We did not kill their civilians. We did not commit genocide because we are not them. We came to the stars seeking knowledge, cooperation, and peace. We hoped the galaxy would be friendly. We hoped we could build something together. Her eyes hardened. But we also remember what we are. We are the children of a dangerous world. We are the descendants of warriors who fought for survival against ice and fire and plague. We have been fighting since before we could write. War is in our blood. It is in our bones. It is in our souls. She raised her voice. To the galaxy we say this. We remain what we have always been. Explorers, dreamers, builders. We want peace. We want friendship. We want to grow together and reach for the stars together. Her tone dropped to ice. But understand this and understand it well. Our children are sacred. Our colonies are sacred. Our people are sacred. Harm them, and there is no force in this universe that will protect you from what follows. She stood tall, the stars behind her. They learned this lesson. Now the entire galaxy knows. We are humanity. We walk softly, but we carry fire. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, species that had dismissed humans as insignificant upstarts everything they thought they knew. Military analysts studied the Pyre campaign and realized they had dramatically underestimated human capabilities. Diplomats rushed to establish better relations with Earth. Leaders quietly ordered their militaries to avoid any action that might provoke the humans. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. The Dominion, once the most feared force in the region, was broken. In its place rose a new power, one that had been there all along, hiding behind a mask of peace and exploration. Humanity had revealed its true face, and the galaxy would never forget it. 6 months after the end of the war, a new colony was established. New Eden II rose on a world close to where the original colony had been destroyed. The first settlers arrived to find buildings already under construction, funded by reparations from the defeated Dominion. Admiral attended the dedication ceremony. She was retiring from active duty, her mission complete. As she stood on the stage and looked out at the new colonists, young families with children, scientists eager to explore, farmers ready to work the soil, she thought about everything that had been lost. 12 million people, her daughter among them, they could never be brought back. The pain would never fully heal. But this was something, a new beginning, a world rising from the ashes. We built New Eden II to honor the dead, she said in her speech. We built it to prove that humanity cannot be destroyed. We built it to show the galaxy that we will always rebuild, always recover, always grow. She looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear. Somewhere out there, the beings who attacked us are watching. They are rebuilding too in their own way. They learned a hard lesson. We all did. She took a deep breath. But the most important lesson is this: peace is not weakness. Kindness is not cowardice. We showed mercy because we are strong, not because we are soft. We chose to spare them because we knew we could destroy them. That is true power. That is what it means to be human. Private David, now Sergeant David, was part of the security detail at the ceremony. He watched Admiral speak and thought about his journey over the past year. He had joined as a boy looking for revenge. He had become a man who understood that there were things more important than revenge. Justice, mercy, remembrance, these were the things worth fighting for. As the ceremony ended and the new colonists began to explore their new home, David walked to a small memorial that had been built in the center of the settlement. It was a smaller version of the obelisk on the, carved with the same 12 million names. He stood before it and saluted. "We remember you," he said quietly, "every one of you, and we will never forget." High above, unseen by the people below, a Terran warship held position in orbit. It was one of many that would patrol this sector forever, ensuring that what happened to New Eden would never happen again. The ship was named Eternal Vigilance. Its crew kept watch over the sleeping colony, ready to defend it against any threat. The Armada would never sleep again. On a wall in Admiral's quarters on Earth, there was a photograph. It showed a young woman with a bright smile, her daughter, Maria, who had died on New Eden. Next to it was a new photograph, the first sunrise on New Eden II, taken on the day the new colony was officially established. Death and rebirth, loss and hope, the eternal cycle of humanity written across the stars. Looked at the photographs every morning. She would look at them for the rest of her life. They reminded her of why they had fought, why they had won, and why they must always be ready to fight again. The galaxy had learned a lesson about humanity. It was a lesson written in fire and blood, in destroyed fleets and broken empires. But it was also a lesson written in mercy, in cities spared and civilians protected. Humanity could destroy, but they chose when to destroy, and that made all the difference. The stars continued to shine, the galaxy continued to turn, and humanity continued its journey among them, explorers, dreamers, builders, warriors, always ready to make friends, always ready to make war. The fire in their hearts would never go out. And if the darkness ever came again, they would be ready. This was their promise to the dead. This was their gift to the living. This was humanity.